Hello, welcome to Children's Church VIA Technology. Thank you for joining us again as we study Genesis, God's amazing Word. Can you believe how much that we have learned so far in the book of Genesis? We started out at the very beginning when God created the heavens and the earth. And each lesson seems to remind me more of how things are today. So much sin and hatred is going on, and we know God's not pleased with it. Well, on to Jacob and his problems with his two sons, Simeon and Levi. Well, briefly, we'll go over some things and catch up on today's lessons and do kind of the short version because we had 4th of July last week. And by the way, I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July and remembered most of all that it is America's birthday. Well, everything had gone well for Jacob and Esau's first meeting. They were happy to see each other and finally made peace. They parted ways and settled in different places. Things were going well for Jacob, but something terrible happened. His daughter, Dinah, was attacked or raped by Shechem, or Shechem's son. It was his son, Hamor. This was a horrible thing to do, but Jacob's sons did something that was much worse. They tricked Shechem and all the men of the city into being circumcised so they would be like them. Well, all of the men of the city did just exactly that. They did as they were asked. They were happy to see him, and everything was going well. They were getting along good. But once again, they were deceived. Well, the men of the city, like I said, did what they asked. Well, they went back. These two brothers, or these two sons, they went back and they killed the men of the city. All right, sadly, they went among all the dead bodies and stole everything that was in the city. Every valuable thing those people owned. They even took the wives and the children. Well, after this happened, Jacob told Simeon and Levi, "You have caused me a lot of trouble." Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites who live, they will just be to the point they will hate me. And there's only just a few of us, and there's really a whole bunch of them. And if they join together to attack my people, and I will be destroyed. Well, now moving on to the next chapter of Genesis, Genesis 35. Well, Jacob is in Bethel, and God is speaking to Jacob again. God said to Jacob, "Go to the city of Bethel and live there. Make an altar to the God who appeared to you there." This was the one when he was running away the first time from Esau. That was the same one. So Jacob said to his family and to all of the ones that was with him, "Put away your foreign gods." Yep, they still had those foreign gods. That was not right. God did not want them to worship anybody, any graven images, right? Well, go make yourselves clean and change your clothes. And we will leave here and we'll go to Bethel. There I will build an altar to God. He has helped me during my time of trouble. He has been with me everywhere I have gone. Now, isn't that just like God? He does this the same way. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had, and they gave him, yes, it says this, earrings that they were wearing. And he hid them under the great tree in the town of Shechem. Well, then Jacob and his sons left there. But God, he caused the people in the nearby cities to be afraid of them. So they were afraid of them and they didn't hurt them. So they didn't follow after the sons of Jacob. And Jacob and all the people who were with him went to a place called Luz. It's now called Bethel, and it is in the land of Canaan. Well, there Jacob built an altar. He named the place Bethel, after God, because God had appeared to him right there. That was when he was running, remember again, from his brother. Well, Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, in the meantime got sick and died, and she was buried under the oak tree at Bethel. And they named that place Oak of Crying. And once again, week before, remember about Jacob's name? Well, when Jacob came back from northwest Mesopotamia, God appeared to him again, and God blessed him. God said to him, once again, your name is Jacob, but you will not be called Jacob any longer. Your new name will be Israel. So he called him Israel. And like I said, remember, God had told Jacob that once before. God said to him, I am God all-powerful. Well, the next verse is something Jacob had many children and several wives, right? Well, guess what? This is what God said. Have many children and grow in number as a nation. You will be the ancestor of many nations and kings. Wow. We already had a bunch, but he's telling him again to go have more. I gave Abraham and Isaac land. I will give that same land to you and your descendants. Then God left him. Well, Jacob set up a stone on edge in that place where God had talked to him. And he poured a drink offering and olive oil on it to make it special for God. And Jacob named that place Bethel. Well, after this, Jacob and his group left Bethel. Well, where do you reckon they were going now? Well, I'm not going to tell you. All right, now here comes something kind of sad. All right, remember Rachel had only had one child. Her and Jacob had only had that one child. But before they came to Ephraim, Rachel began giving birth to her baby. This was baby number 2. But she was having much trouble with this birth. Well, when Rachel's nurse saw this, she evidently knew what was going on. And she said, don't be afraid, Rachel. You are giving birth to another son. Well, how did she know that? Rachel gave birth to the son, but she died. As she lay dying, she named the boy son of my suffering. But Jacob changed his name and he called him Benjamin. Well, Rachel was buried on the road to Ephraim, a district of Bethlehem. Remember you heard that word before too? So where were they on the way to? And Jacob set up a rock on her grave to honor her. And do you know that rock is still there today? I would love to go over there and see all that. Then Israel, also called Jacob, continued his journey. He camped just south of Miss Norma had it right before. Migdalater. Anyway, I'll spell it for you. It's Migdal, Migdalater, Eder. When Israel was in that land, Reuben had physical relations with another one, with Israel's slave woman, Elah. Now, Israel heard about it. Well, the next chapter goes on to talk about Israel's family, children. The family of Israel. And it can just go on and on with some of it. Anyway, try to bear with me. Jacob had 12 sons. He had 6 sons by his wife Leah. Reuben was her first son. Then Leah had Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. He had 2 sons by his wife Rachel, only 2, Joseph and Benjamin. All right, he had 2 sons by Rachel's slave girl, Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. And he had 2 sons by Leah's slave girl, Zilpah, Gad, and Asher. These are Jacob's sons who were born here in northwest Mesopotamia. All right, Jacob went to his father Isaac at Mamre, which was near Hebron. And this is where Abraham and Isaac had lived. Well, Isaac lived 180 years. So he was 180 years old. But that's nothing. In the very beginning, some of the other parts in the Bible, we know some other men that lived to be over 900 years old. Yep. Well, the very oldest one, his name was Methuselah. Well, it was so sad. But remember where they had traveled back? Isaac. Who was Isaac? He was Jacob / or Israel's dad and Esau's. Well, Isaac, he breathed his last breath and died when he was very old. So Esau and Jacob / Israel buried him. Now, chapter 36 is all about Esau's descendants. And sometime, when you get a chance, have somebody to help you find chapter 36. And it gives this one had this one, and that one had that one, and that one. I mean, the whole entire chapter. And Miss Norma could go on and on and on and on, and I would never be able to get all of them. So we'll just leave it like that, the family tree for now, okay? We're just going to study Genesis 36:6. Well, Esau took his wives and sons and daughters and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock and his other animals. Well, he took all the goods that he had acquired in Canaan, and he moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob, so they were not close to each other. And here's why. Well, their possessions were too great, or way too much, for them to remain together. Well, the land where they were staying could not support them because of their livestock. You see, there was just not enough land for their livestock to graze on because there were so many. So Esau, he settled in the hill country in Seir. And this will lead us up to a young man in the Bible that some of you have already heard about. In fact, we've studied about him not too terribly long before. But I think it'd be good for us to go back and go over it again, because I know y'all know who he is and you love studying about him. Well, don't you think that every child is a gift from God and that they need special attention from their parents? I do. We show love to our children in different ways because each are unique in their own little way. But every parent still makes a point to show love to each child at the same, or at least they should. Well, we know now that Jacob played favorites with his children. He honors the son of Rachel, which was Joseph and Benjamin, above all the other brothers. And this leads to all kinds of conflict within the family. You will find this happening in a story about Joseph and his famous coat. Also, things are a lot different from the time of Benjamin's birth. Well, unfortunately, back then, death in childbirth was a rather common thing to happen. Well, Jacob had been really blessed so far, and none of his wives or those surrogate wives had died in childbirth. But the 12th son is the one that made the difference. He's the one that died. Well, as Rachel suffered through childbirth, she named her son based on her pain, and it was called Ben-Oni, which means son of my sorrow. But Jacob couldn't stand it. He just couldn't stand having his son's name constantly remind him of his beloved wife, Rachel, of her dying. So he just had to change the name to something that gave him more comfort. I get it, but the trouble comes when Jacob decides on the new name for the child. Benjamin means son of my land, which signifies a very special place of protection and favor. When giving his son this name, Jacob was declaring that this child would have a special place of honor in the home. And favoritism, way back, has caused a lot of heartaches in these lessons, hasn't it? And every child is special, but when Jacob lifts up one child above all of his other children, he's implying that Benjamin's brothers are not as special as he is, and that Reuben and Simeon and Levi aren't as loved by their father as this little baby. Well, Jacob grew up in a home where his father favored one child over the other. He should have known better. Look what he did, him and his mom, and how his dad favored Esau. It was trouble from the very beginning. But he passed this same favoritism and jealousy onto his own children. Well, hopefully, Jacob is going to get it right one day. So until then, until next week, be good to each other and love each other. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much that you do not play favoritism. You love each and every one of us. In fact, so much that you gave us your only begotten Son in order that we might be saved. That's love. Help us to always love our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren the same. And remember that they are special in their own unique way. I ask you that you please guide us to bring up the children in the way that's pleasing to you. Please forgive us when we fail or we disappoint you. And would you please be with the ones who are sick at home and those in the hospitals. Thank you for your many, many blessings. Amen. And all of God's children said, I love you, Jesus.